So I would say the biggest thing for me as we kind of enter Q&A, and I'll kind of open up the floodgates for any kind of comments or anything like that. My biggest question is, out of the products that we've trained you guys on and you guys have worked with, which one would you say you would probably want to dive a little bit deeper into? Whether that may be field book, whether it may be materials, and for those who went through sample plan training, that could possibly be sample plan training. If you could just drop it in the chat and let us know, and that'll kind of give us a starting point on what we should cover. I know there are many smaller topics that exist out there, whether it may be inside a field book, learning how to use some of those forms, or it might be in materials on how do we print out those QR codes or stuff like that. But just let us know, which one do you feel like could you have a little bit more training on to kind of push you to the next level inside of that piece of software? And while we're doing that, if anybody has a specific question that they wanted to, why they attended on today that they want to ask, feel free to go ahead and ask it out loud. Like I told you guys before, this is an open roundtable type of discussion for today.
I got one.
What you got?
Stockpile. When is stockpile coming online?
When is stockpile coming online?
Usually on Site Manager was a little program that ran in the background, and we don't have it. Headlight does not have it at this point, and it's causing us some misery, let me tell you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Phil, let me take this one right quick. So, and for all of you who don't know, that's David Jinks. He's one of our consultant inspectors. He used to be DOTD. And this group is not just LADOTD, it's consultant inspectors and LADOTD. We want to get this knowledge base everywhere because we're all kind of working on the same projects and trying to move LADOTD projects along. So what David is bringing up here is the big project here in Baton Rouge, probably specifically the big CMAR project. We are doing headlight contract administration on that job, which means no site manager, right? And so I know most of you at LADOTD have heard that's coming. That's probably a high risk project to try it out on, but that's what's happening because site manager could not handle the structure of that project. It's like 5 or 6 mini projects in one. And so it's fairly new, and we're trying to put the pieces together of what's needed there. So obviously Headlight has worked and focused mostly on the contract administration parts like change orders and estimates. And the next link in that probably would be stockpile payments, which is just a big thing on that job right now. I don't know the answer to it, but I wanted to give you some context of where that's coming from. That's kind of a contract administration question. And David, I'm gonna tell you, we really don't know the answer to that. I'll just be honest with you. We know that Headlight has a module, but I think their main focus is getting you guys set up with the estimates and change orders first. There is, from what I've heard, there's kind of not a workaround, but there is a place to do some stockpile work in there. And so we have to turn that on for you guys and get you guys trained up on it. If anybody from Headlight has more information on that, feel free to jump in. But
Awesome. Thank you, Les. Any further questions in regards to the stockpile question? If not, I think we have some other great questions that were entered in the chat. The first one was how to annotate photos with measurements. All right, I think that's a great question. Thank you, Mike Ricker, for actually asking that question. Well, there's 2 ways that you can annotate photos with measurements. The first one is right within our software, there's built-in annotation. And what you would actually do is inside of that photo, once you take a picture, there's the annotation button where it's that little pin. You would select that little blue pin. And when you select that little blue pin, it opens up a new set of options to have. Over in your left bottom right corner, there's one with a capital A. You can actually click on that capital A and you can put in your measurements, whether it may be 16 feet or if you want to do length times width times height or something like that, you can add those in and annotate and then include that into your photo for your observation, okay? The second way to be able to add annotation is you can actually use the native app ability to do annotation, or use the measurements app to measure out what you have, and then you would be able to use that photo from the gallery. Now, the only thing about doing that is you would have to do this, make sure that you do this on the site, because there's certain metadata that's captured when you take a photo, and we need to make sure that that metadata is then saved with that picture that you're pulling from the gallery, okay? So I would tell you to do it on site if you're going to do it that way, but the best option is the first one that I gave in regards to the annotation that's already built in with the software. Les, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so part of this, Mike, is going to be kind of impromptu trainings on stuff. That's one that I actually want to train on here within the next couple months. Probably it might even be the February training session. Like we might spend 15 or 20 minutes on actually how to do that. And what Phil said there was important. There is the annotation feature in Headlight, which is not too bad to do, but it's really hard to draw straight lines there. And that's what most people have trouble with when you're in some kind of engineering field, is that you want straight lines, right? So the way I used to do that was with the native iPad app, but it is important that you're capturing the image first in Headlight and then annotating it in the app, in the iPad, and then re-uploading. I tell you, that might even be something I probably need to put a little video together on and put that on our YouTube page. But yeah, that's very important.
Great question, Mike. Once again, thank you for it. The second question that Mike has, and I'm probably going to need you, Mike, to give me a little bit more information on it so I can properly answer it. When items come for meeting agendas, who should we send it to? Can you kind of be a little bit more detailed for us in regards to that, Mike?
So usually what happens is I'm in the middle of doing something and I'm going like, I need more information on this, which would be an agenda item for possibly at another meeting time. So when something like that comes up, who should I send that item to so we get it on the agenda for the next month or some month in the near future?
Oh, okay. Well, if you're talking about like for next month, for example.
Yeah. Not this meeting, but future meetings.
You can always, so we have multiple ways that you can send those in. You can send that in as a support ticket, and then we kind of have that added. But the big three that you would probably send that to for us to add for our next meeting would be me, Les Fletcher, as well as Mark Stackhouse. That would be the three main players to put on our monthly webinar for next month.
Okay.
The next one would be, we have one from Big Nate, just asking at what point will we be done away with Site Manager? And I think this question has probably crossed everybody's mind that's on this call, as well as many others. I'll kind of let Les kind of go into detail, or Patrick go into details in regards to the process that we're actually taking to get to that step, as well as what we should be doing now as we build up to that step.
So we are actually, with the success we've had with other headlight modules in the field, we're actually looking at redirecting some of the efforts now inward, starting with the contract administration, construction administration, along with the sampling plan and the estimate payments and change orders, things like that. And then the goal is to also continue that effort into creating a new limb system with Headlight, where we're ultimately replacing all of those pieces that we're still working out of Site Manager and to completely do away with Site Manager. Now the contract for the construction administration and limbs is basically starting here in the next couple of weeks, from my understanding. And that is I believe it's 16 to 20 month contract. So we're looking at basically within the next 16 months, we will have that up and running and start, that's from start to end is the 16 months. So they're saying within probably the next 4 to 6 months, they're looking at starting to deploy and test and train the new LIM system. So that's kind of the timeline with that, such that toward the end of 2023, first quarter 2024 is when we're really expecting everyone to kind of be in that transition mode out of Site Manager completely and into the new suite that we're building with Headlight. And we will always take volunteers for testing out new software, trying it, super user.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. Hopefully that answers you guys' question, answers your question, Nate, in regards to what's the plan for us to get off of Site Manager or the end of Site Manager. The next question we have is, would definitely like, well, more of a statement, but I would take it as probably some more practice that's needed. Would definitely like more training on creating samples and printing QR labels for the lab. Since the previous training, I haven't had the opportunity to do enough to be proficient in it. So yes, we can definitely go over some of those on these monthly webinars on how to create those as far as creating samples and printing QR labels. But I want to let you guys know as we get ready for that, all of you have the ability to use the practice project on the materials app and be able to go in there and create samples and kind of work through some of those samples, okay? So you can use that. It's no way to break it or hurt anything on a live project or anything like that. Just remember to use the LADOTD Training 2.0 project, and you can go in there and start to kind of create samples, see how everything works, kind of play around with it and treat it as a sandbox. So you will use your same login credentials that you use on Philbook, but you would be on the materials app. You can go under that project, create samples. You can also test out printing QR labels as long as you have a wireless printer to print those out, and you have access to that all the time, okay? So until we go over it, feel free, if you have any spare time, to play around on that project. Les, you want to add anything to that in regards to creating samples and printing QR labels?
No, I think you're good. Again, that's probably going to be a topic that comes up on, on these webinars. We'll actually go through some training on how to do, but yeah, I don't really have anything other than that, Phil.
Gotcha. Thank you. And David Jenks, he also was inquiring more about the sampling and work items and estimates and stuff like that. I do know that they have that big job coming up. No worries there, guys. I'm going to work with your group on, outside of this to be able to kind of catch you guys up to speed, as I know that project is one that we have eyes on, and we'll work with you.
It's not coming up, it's here.
It's here. Yeah, but we have that in the workings. That should be coming very soon for you, okay?
Thank you.
No problem. Next question we have, Tia, she asks, do we still have access to LIMS from Site Manager, or is there an update for that on Headlight as well? Go ahead, pass that one to you, Les, to be able to answer that in regards to the LIMS setup.
I may need a little more context on that. I'm not sure what you're asking, Tia. Currently you should have access to LIMS.
Answered that earlier.
Okay. All right, great.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think you guys got a good bit of questions. I think we should have been doing these monthly webinars, because some of these questions are very great questions that a lot of people could really use the answers on. I have another one, and I think this one goes directly to you, Patrick, from Big Nate. Patrick, who do we need to get in contact with in order to repair or get a new label printer? This would be for all my LADOTD folks.
Yeah, I think Amar may have had a couple extra. If not, we'll see what we need to do to order. Email the DOTD eConstruction and CC myself on it, and just send me your basically your district and unit, and we will see what we can do to get a new one out there to you.
Nate, are you in the District 62 office with Derek Woods? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I have verified that their printer does not work. I have tried to fix it myself, so we need to get them a new one. While I'm at it, and I just saw another question pop up from Josh Cook about getting Wi-Fi in the PE offices. Josh, I'm not sure if you were on the email that went out, but OTS, they just say they're working on it, and they are kind of in the southern districts. So they really did not give us a time frame on when they were going to get it, but pretty much just said it's going to be a while. And that's why we sent out the letter or sent out the email about being able to get Wi-Fi hotspots in the field offices. So hopefully somebody from your office contacted your business people at the district and they are getting you guys a hotspot. I did get an email from somebody at District 61 now that I'm talking about it. They were asking about setting up a contract if it was something they were going to be able to like just go month by month until they get the Wi-Fi fixed. And so I think somebody over there is working on getting all the PE offices in District 61 a Wi-Fi hotspot from either AT&T or Verizon. So hopefully that's coming to kind of fill the gap, because yeah, not having Wi-Fi in the field offices I know is a struggle. And even if you do have Wi-Fi, using your iPad in a metal building, most of our PE offices are metal building. I know that's a problem too. So
Thanks, Les. So we have another question. Jason Pitts actually put it in. It would be nice for our supervisors to have the ability to void any sample ID created in error. I know in the past we have had to email someone in Baton Rouge to have a sample ID voided. Jason, for everybody that's on, I would have one question. How often would you say this process is used? If you had to say, how often would you say you need to void out a sample? And secondly, I'll let Les and Patrick kind of answer to what we have in place already in regards to being able to cancel samples or void samples out. So how often would you say this is done on a project standpoint? How often do we need to void out samples? Or Jason, in your experience, how often have you voided out?
It's pretty frequent. Now individual districts or individual units, it may be ever so often, but when you do it across statewide, it's pretty frequent. So
And I'm gonna add in that, and when you're on a design build and you're dealing with the QC and the OV being outside labs, it's pretty frequent.
Okay.
Now the current procedure had, I believe, some of the higher levels, maybe at the project engineer, and I don't know if the super user had that ability, but the site manager had certain caveats where it had to be in a certain state, like you had to be in no open test on it, so you'd have to go in and close all the test on it. You had to have it at least past a receive state, I think, or once it got past a receive state, it had to be at least in a pre-auth state before you wrote. So there was a bunch of caveats within site manager, which is why it was a lot easier to send it our way, and the admins could bypass some of these caveats, just take care of it. Let me look at, since I'm kind of over site manager now, let me look at some of the other options we have as far as adding that functionality to some of the higher levels. Because I know there was concerns about just basically making it open-ended, where I don't think it's user controlled either. So I think if you go in there, you can pull up any site manager ID and remove it, whether it's yours or not. I think that was a concern about adding it across multiple levels. So
if you void,
go ahead, Kevin.
if you void the sample in Site Manager, you have to cancel all the tests first,
Right.
and then you can actually void the sample. But like in concrete, you had to have access to the field gangs, because you have to void the air and slump if they put that in there if you wanted to void the whole sample.
Right. That was one of the issues we run into. And here at the, the admin level, we can basically see across all gangs and all units and, all districts. So it was a lot easier for us to go in and cancel everything. Now, one thing we may be able to do is build like a quick little tool that, we can put in either LePave or put on the intranet somewhere where you can basically just punch in your sample ID and void it, and it'll take care of everything. But again, that's a What if we accidentally get the wrong one? What if we, so it's one of those hesitant issues, but that is a functionality that as we move forward with a new LIM system with headlight that we will definitely be addressing in that case. So I will look at a few options of what we can do for the immediate concern over the next year, probably with LIMS in Site Manager, and we'll see if we can address that definitely moving forward.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, that's the other is Site Manager locks some of the samples where if you put in wrong material or choose the wrong item, it is very difficult to shift some of that information in and out.
You could naturally inside of headlight, you could delete that sample before it goes in the next step, but you only have 10 minutes before that sample goes to the next log step. So that doesn't give much time if you have to void it out. And I think we would have to look at what Patrick just stated as a option in regards to that, because I don't believe anybody's catching that in the first 10 minutes.
Well, I think this is also more on the Site Manager LIM side, because most of the time when you realize you need to void something, it's already gone, several days or something past.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, that's definitely a big note to put on the list of when we get into a sample management type tool. One of the other things I've been tossing around a few years is if we were to build something that would purge samples sitting, because I know some people create samples, they never get out of the pending status. If it's sat in that pending status for 2-3 months, is it okay just to purge the samples, especially if it doesn't have a contract tied to it? So we've been looking at other options like that to kind of automate some of these, just to clean up some of the queues and eliminate some of these samples that have just been sitting out there.
Thanks for that question. We appreciate that. Something that we should address at some point. So appreciate that question. Next question comes from Amanda Garcia in regards to any idea when this will begin to be implemented in the district labs. Amanda, I know we talked about a few things. Is there anything specific that you were referring to on that question?
So we are looking at getting iPads for the labs right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
they can start getting caught up on headlight.
Yeah, we're looking at least providing 2 iPads per district right now until we can maybe fully implement it. So Amanda, really, Headlight has been implemented, like you guys have logins for materials and sample plan. But a lot of the labs have not chosen to really dive into it yet, and for good reason, because there's not a LIMS system, right? There's nowhere for you to put in your test results and that kind of thing. It would just be, now you could kind of see how the inspectors are creating the sample, if they're adding any custom notes that might help you when you're running the test. But technically you have a login, it's just your part of it is not built yet.
Yeah. Also, to add to that, Les, we've been tossing around the idea of how to get you guys access to all of the projects that you need to be able to see within your respective districts, as well as security-wise, what capabilities is needed to not damage anything that the inspectors have done in the field, but also allow you guys to input your information. So it's been a few things that have been tossed around, but the biggest thing is we want you guys to get comfortable and familiar with the process that the inspectors are taking as they're selecting and what they're doing as they bring that information to you. So hopefully that helps, but there's more to come in regards to the district labs workflow when it comes down to the materials apps and so forth.
I see you have a follow-up statement there, Amanda, and I want to address that. And Phil just talked about it briefly, but I think this was missed. It was probably the biggest part that was missed by the labs in training. So access to projects is given by the project engineer. So the project engineer over the job is the one who has to sign you up and like add you to that project. They all have the ability to do that. So what likely needs to happen is for the district lab engineer to send a list of all of their users in that lab over to the PE offices and say, hey, can you add all of these people to all of your projects? And that's what would give you access. There's not a tool right now for us to globally give you access to everything in your district. right? That comes later on once headlight contract administration is fully implemented. We will get some of those tools to do that, but now that we're kind of switching between two systems, that's the best we can do. Is the project engineer would have to go in and add all that. I'm happy to help there. So if there's a project engineer that gets a large list of people that need to be added to a project, I'm happy to go in and help add those people. So it's not such a heavy lift for that project engineer. But the main thing is you need the project engineer's permission to be on that project is what we're trying to do. We want the project engineer offices to see who has access and who's looking at what they're doing, basically, since they are, they're responsible for the project. So, send that email, CC me on it. The project engineer says it's good to go. We can add these people. I'll be happy to help add.
Thank you, Les. So it seems we have another one. Mike Ricker has another question. Is there a way to move some completed projects to an archive status in LIMS? I'll leave this up to the the e-construction crew to be able to answer that.
And in the site manager version, unfortunately not. We've looked at options, and basically to retain the existing data, it pulls everything in the contract table. As we move forward with a new LIM system, this is another one of those items that, to cull down some of the list is to only show active projects and a way to flag that type status. So that's definitely one of the ideas that we're looking for moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you. Those were some great questions, and I think it addressed some things that we've had some concerns and wanted to know more details about in regards to some of the processes that we have in place. But I do want to leave room if there's anybody else who has some questions that they would like answered. But this was a great start to our first monthly webinar. As we go along, things will become a little bit more formal as far as having some specific demonstrations, as far as addressing some specific topics that we feel like a lot of people are starting to ask more of, as well as delivering some of the basics in regards to field book materials and sample plan for some others. Great questions. I can't stress that enough for the start, and I appreciate everybody for participating at the last minute. I know this just kind of popped up on us, but I appreciate you for all attending. It looks like we have another one. Who's this from? Canefield. It would be nice for everyone to know who are the contact to resolve certain issues. For example, adding items to projects or have tests that need to be associated with items. I know some of the personnel has changed over the years, and I think there is a disconnect on who to contact for what. I think that's an awesome question, and we kind of wanted to start off. That's why we made it such a we spent enough time as far as going into introductions, but I'll try to answer that best I can, and I'm sure the e-construction group can kind of align you guys with the right people in regards to some of those questions. For starters, when it comes down to a question, you can't go wrong by reaching out when it comes down to headlight software, reaching out to me first, right? If whenever in doubt, you can reach out to me. That's Philip Graves, philip.graves@headlight.com. I'll drop it inside of the chat in a few seconds. But you can reach out to me. You can also reach out to Les, and we can appoint you to who that question will go to, or even on your behalf, we can kind of position that question or issue to the right party, okay? Outside of that, you do have some other resources that would be very helpful. You have our support team at Headlight, support@headlight.com. You also have the ability to reach out to that e-construction email address that Patrick dropped earlier for any issues you might have. But there are some specialties within these two groups, okay? My specialty is everything headlight. Les is his specialty would be field book. If you have material questions, as we kind of get Kevin on board, Kevin will be able to assist you as far as the materials questions or some of the stuff in regards to limbs and sampling. Okay. But I'll let Les and Patrick kind of speak to the specialties on their side that can kind of help you going along the way if you have any issues.
I want to simplify that down, Phil. So
Okay.
if you have a headlight problem, anything with your iPad, any part of the software that's not working the way you want, your first thought should be send an email to support@headlight.com. And the reason that is because that if it goes to field, sometimes support can answer your question quickly and directly. Like if it's just something with the iPad, they may be able to shoot you out a quick email fix, and that's pretty simple, right? Anything deeper than that, it goes to field anyway through that support email. We've had problems in the past where we had, especially, it was a couple of years ago, but I want to give you this example to let you know what happened. So there was a problem across the state where images were not syncing and getting to the server, right? So they were taking the images on the iPads, and at the end of the day, you go to review the report, the image would say, you know, image not there, or whatever that little thing says. And so this was happening all over the state, but it wasn't everybody. It was kind of intermittent. So this went on for a couple months, and luckily I had the same problem on my iPad. And so I was sending in support cases, but Headlight only saw that as 1 or 2 support cases. So they didn't think it was a big issue until we had to like make it a big issue. So what happens is the more emails they get, right? And so if there's a problem and their emails coming in from everybody across the state who's having that problem, they say, okay, we have a problem, and they can divert resources to that immediately, right? And get it taken care of. When it lingers on and nobody's sending those support cases in, they really don't know there's a problem. So that's step one. So your first thought should be email support@headlight.com. Sometimes if it is actually an issue that's on our side, we have an agreement with Headlight. They take that email in, they ingest it, and then they spit it back to us here at headquarters anyway, right? So if it's for us, it'll still get to us. So that is the easiest solution, is to get it there. Now, with that being said, with the new e-construction team, we have an email set up that Patrick dropped in the chat earlier. So if it's something like items or tests assigned to something, you have a problem with a site manager issue, or maybe something with LePave you don't know how to do, you're welcome to send that directly to that e-construction email, and that goes to everybody in our group. And so you don't have to know the specifics of who handles what. You send it to that thing, and we will decide, and one of us will jump on it and take care of it. So those are like 2 emails, and that's all you need to know. Headlight, support@headlight.com, LADOTD problem, send it to this one. If you know those 2 things, you'll get support pretty quickly.
And we're working on getting the e-construction team, because we just brought on basically 3 new people over the last couple of months. Get them up to speed on handling some of these support cases, like you mentioned, you know, adding stuff to projects, adding line items to project. Some of that, it takes it a few times to do. It takes you a few times to see it and understand, because people ask it in different ways and things like that. So we're definitely trying to spread this information where it's not just one person doing it, which is kind of the situation we've fallen into in the past. And when that one person either leaves or moves on or changes sections, then we scramble to kind of get this information back together. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're rebuilding this team. We're spreading that information across multiple people, as well as building out a lot of the documentation for kind of a knowledge base on how to handle some of these. And a lot of this is becoming also the workflow documentation for when we're building the new master record table with Headlight. We're building the new LIM system with Headlight. That gives us this reference, and you know, we can show, hey, look, we've had 50 support cases like this over the last number of months, and it's all the same issue. So can we build a workflow where, you know, this is something that's more manageable at the user end, instead of having to come to the admin level every time. So definitely email us. And when you email support@Headlight, you can also CC the DOTD construction group, because we take a lot of these emails and build kind of analytics off of it, where we can get an idea of the number of issues and the number of cases and stuff that we need to focus on. And, you know, if we see a lot of stuff coming from one area, that shows us where we need to redirect some training resources, maybe things like that.
That's a great thought, Patrick. If you send it to support@headlight.com and CC that e-construction group, you are guaranteed to get some help from somebody.
Awesome. Mike asked another great question. Is there a way to capture items covered in this meeting? Where will we record for this meeting? Where would the recording for this meeting be found? To answer that first one, you guys probably received on today that newsletter. That newsletter is going to house a lot of information for you guys. It's going to house tips and tricks, some of the latest things that we have going on from the e-construction standpoint that you can kind of follow up on. Also, you have the YouTube page that the DOTD has where you can also watch some of those videos. And I would assume some of this stuff that's covered inside of these meetings will also be housed on that YouTube page as well. So as Patrick is pulling up and sharing his screen, he can kind of show you where that information is housed.
So we actually added, am I muted? Yeah, I'm muted. Okay. We actually added a link for headlight links and training here, and we also updated our construction internet page. So clicking either one of these takes you to the same place. There's now an e-construction section where we are linking a lot of the headlight resources. There's LePave resources, as well as links to, let's see, the headlight training. Yeah, we have the DOTD construction YouTube. So a lot of these videos, a lot of these recordings, as we're developing these resources, we're going to be putting hyperlinks to them, probably all from this section. So if you can get to this section, this is where a lot of that information will be. And that is, again, directly off the intranet page, or if you go to the construction internet page, it's right there under e-construction.
Patrick, for consultants, where would they be able to access this information, being that they might not have access to the intranet?
So this is the DOTD internet page. This is a public facing page on the outside.
Okay, all right.
So that is where they can get their link to LePave Online from outside. That is where, you know, all the public facing links, we're posting them all here. This also has the supported headlight. I need to add the e-construction group on there as well. But yeah, we're trying to consolidate all this information into one spot.
Awesome, appreciate it. Do we have anything else? Oh, we have one more question. We have a YouTube page. What's the name of the YouTube channel? Patrick, what's the name of the YouTube channel?
I believe it's just DOTD construction. Yeah, let me share it again here.
I just put it in the chat. You didn't know, Nate, because it's brand new. It's only been up for a couple of months.
So he's got a few videos out here that are mostly headlight. I know we have another one for materials that has some really old LePave stuff on there. So we may try and, since we brought Kevin on board, get some of that LePave documentation up.
Actually, there's a link to it up in the top right there. That goes to the map.
Right there. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you got some old testing videos and how-tos, and there's some old LePave walkthroughs. So we'll definitely look at getting a lot of this documentation updated and some of this training information updated. We've also reached out to LTRC. I have been asking them multiple times if we can get some of this seeded into the structured training program. So we are looking at making that a push as well, where some of these classes will be available through the LEO training. We may look at building proficiency, what's the proficiency requirements for technicians and things like that, based on some of the headlight documentation and based on some of the headlight options, to replace some of this old and outdated stuff that's just, you know, some of it's not really applicable to your job, yet you're still having to train on it, still having to teach it. We're wanting to get LTRC involved and get it updated. Yeah, they're updating to a new system, but I think they're still teaching some of the old stuff, because Les sat in a class in December that was still preaching site manager for some of the DWR and some of the stuff that's moved on to headlight now for just about everybody. So we're definitely reaching out to them to get it updated.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate everybody for joining on today. Hopefully we see this number grow from the amount of attendees that we have, and be on the lookout for the newsletter for February's meeting. Remember, guys, it will be the second Tuesday of every month. So just kind of put that on your calendar, but we will send out an invite for the monthly webinar right before that, as well as the newsletter. But thank you everyone again for jumping on. I think this was very informative, to say this was our first go around, and hopefully this is a way to see us continuously grow and succeed throughout the year in the new e-construction processes and software that we use. So thank you once again on behalf of Headlight, and I'll go ahead and leave it up to the e-construction group for closing remarks.
I just want to say thank you again, Les and Phil, for putting this together. I think this is definitely a great way to distribute information and get feedback immediately, as well as, you can see what peers are in here, what peers are asking questions. And in a lot of cases, you can just go to your peer that, be able to help you out right next door, as well as all of our resources that we have available here at headquarters.
Thanks, guys. You have a
With
nice
that,
day.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.